Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to build million-dollar businesses without sacrificing their health, relationships, or happiness, who understand that in order to build their empire, they need a solid foundation, and that the more they are thriving, the more their business is thriving too. This show brings you the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbutt, the scientist turned mindset and high performance coach for entrepreneurs, and I help you get wired for success. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Wired for Success podcast, where we talk about all things science, self-development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. My guest today is author, mindset, and performance coach Byron Morrison. Byron is the author of 3 best-selling books, and over the last decade, he has worked with CEOs, entrepreneurs, and leaders in 15 different countries to help them take back control of their lives and businesses. And life hasn't always been his way, though. For most of his life, he was his own worst enemy, sabotaging everything from his health to his relationships and his personal success. After his dad's cancer, he went on a journey of transformation where, after losing 50 pounds and turning his life around, he set out on a mission to help others take control of their life. For the last decade, he has been working with people from around the world to help them get out of their own way so that they can start living the life they want. And everything he's done has built up to his new book, Maybe You Should Give Up, 7 Ways to Get Out of Your Own Way and Take Control of Your Life, which hits stores in June this year. So welcome, Byron, and thank you so much for being on my show today.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm looking forward to our conversation. So, Byron, how did you become a mindset and high performance coach? Can you tell us a little bit more about your background and your entrepreneurial journey so far? What's going on today?
So, just for a little bit of a bird's eye overview, you shared a little bit in the introduction, but the big catalyst and turning point in my life was when my dad's cancer took me on this journey of transformation. I learned everything I could about nutrition, fitness, changing behaviors. I wrote my first best-selling book, and I started a business helping people from around the world take control of their lives. And truth be told, I was completely in over my head, because even though I knew what I was doing from a coaching standpoint, I'd never run a company before. I didn't know how to manage people. I didn't know how to grow teams. I didn't know how to make big decisions. And I just became completely overwhelmed and stretched thin by everything going on. And it pushed me to a point where I just became completely burnt out. And my business felt like this mental and emotional drain. And I got to a stage in my life where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was like, either I need to find a way to turn this around, or I need to just throw in the towel and go get a job. So, determined not to quit and give up, I went to learn everything I could about psychology, managing people, dealing with conflicts, really looking at how to run a company culture. And the more I learned about that, the more I started actually making progressive changes in my own business that got it under control. Naturally, with the clients I was working with, there were a lot of entrepreneurs and business leaders. These topics started coming up in our sessions. And a lot of these people I saw were having the same challenges that I had. And I was really able to help guide them to ways to deal with it. And over time, I figured out that not only was that my superpower, it was also where my passion was. So I closed down that old business and I relaunched and pivoted, focusing on more on the mindset and high performance standpoint of helping people become who they need to be to get to the next level.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. This really resonates with me because I think it was kind of similar for me as well. So when I decided that I wanted to start my own business, I'm a molecular biologist by profession. So I really had no idea how to get started. And I hit all those mindset blocks that you talked about. I was so afraid to get started. I was afraid to fail. I was afraid to get judged. I was afraid of literally everything. So I really had to work through all those blocks as they came up. And then I suddenly realized, well, everyone else is struggling with the exact same things. So now that I've helped myself, I can help others too, right?
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing where we look back at how much we can get in our own way, because the people I speak to, so often they know what they need to do. They know the actions they should be taking to create the life and success they want, but they're not doing it. Whether that's because they're overthinking, they're procrastinating, they're worrying about what other people are going to think. So it's really understanding why someone's a stumbling block in the way of their success and what they need to do to overcome that. And one of my favorite quotes is, your business's growth will never outgrow your inner growth. And it's something that I've seen to be true time and time again over the last few years, because there's so many people with huge goals and aspirations, then they think the thing stopping them from getting to the next level is the wrong strategy or the wrong plan, whereas actually it's themselves. It's the actions they're taking and how they're showing up. Because it's the same reason why you can give 100 people the same strategy, but they all get different results. The thing that separates them is their mindset and how they execute. So once you get out of your own head, that's actually where the real growth comes in.
That's so true. And I think a lot of people think that they need more information, but that's rarely the case. I mean, the things that they need most are those mindset shifts that you talked about. They might need a strategy, but usually they have all the information, or they could easily get all the information they need on the internet. It's the implementation step that they can't figure out. They can't get themselves to take the action they know they should be taking. Now,
the interesting thing was, sorry to interrupt there, like one thing I really want to interject, because I think this will be super valuable for people listening, is also having the self-awareness as to why you're consuming so much information. Because if you're trying to go down a new path, obviously you need to learn and figure out what you're doing, but you also need to be honest with yourself as to when you know enough. Because most people build up consuming information as a positive thing. They're like, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm developing myself, whereas actually it has negative connotations. There's so many people overconsume out of fear because they convince themselves they're not ready yet. So they use it as a defense mechanism to avoid taking action. And not only that, but also when you overconsume information, it's also pretty overwhelming. Because if you read so many different books and do all these courses, it can leave you with so many competing ideas that you don't know where to begin. So you become even more stuck. And this is why I'm a big believer that you'd be far better off picking one amazing book or one fantastic course, doing it, getting the guidance you need, focus on implementing, then see what do I need to know now, and then build on it piece by piece. That's going to go a much further way in helping you make progress rather than just over consuming for the sake of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I used to be stuck in the same trap, just thinking, oh, I need to learn more. I need to learn more before I can get started. And then what I realized eventually was that action is the fastest way to clarity. You really have to get started and you tweak as you go. You don't have to have it all figured out right from the start. You start with an educated guess. I mean, do your research. You take an educated guess, and then you take it from there.
100%. And I'll be the first to put up my hand and admit I used to do the same. Like the amount of time I wasted just convincing myself I wasn't ready yet. And like you said, like the clarity comes in action. When you start pushing yourself to move forward, that's when you figure out what to do, what not to do. You get the biggest lessons, and that's how you grow. Whereas if you're just sitting on the sidelines, hoping that you'll figure it out and you'll know everything already, you're never going to be ready, because there's always going to be that little bit of doubt and fear. Whereas what you want is on the other side of that. So until you put yourself in a situation to face it, there's always going to be that thing weighing you back and holding you down.
Yeah, you need the feedback to tweak your offer and to hone your message and all the good things that help you make progress. So what has been your own biggest struggle as an entrepreneur so far, and what tools, techniques, and strategies have you found really, really helpful in that situation?
I'd say the biggest struggle that no one really realizes when it comes to growing a business is just dealing with the highs and lows. Because as I'm sure you've seen with growing your own company, like nothing really prepares you for the roller coaster ride of ups and downs that's involved. Because one moment you can feel on top of the world, everything's going great, and a couple minutes later it can be the lowest lows where everything's falling apart. And this is why I believe you've got to be a special kind of crazy to be an entrepreneur, because you're essentially signing up for a life where every single day you're going to get punched in the face, and you've got to pick yourself up and come back smiling and pushing yourself for more. I think very few people mentally and emotionally are cut out for that, because you really have to be able to deal. There's going to be times where you're going to do everything right. You're going to show up, you're going to put in the work, and you're still going to fall short. And if you don't look at that as an opportunity and a way that you can actually learn from it and keep striving forward, you're never going to make it. And that's why for me, not just myself, but with people I've worked with, I've seen that that's one of the things that doesn't get anywhere near as much attention as it needs to be. And it's that resilient mindset that you have to be working on. Because if you get a job, you've got security. Like the only thing that you need to do is show up and do your work. Was when you're running a business, the only certainty you have is that the day is going to be unpredictable. It's going to be full of challenges, and so many things can and will go wrong. So if you don't buy into that and just be like, I'm going to enjoy the process, you're never going to make it. So that's something I love. Like for me personally, I love the challenge. I love the thrill. I love all of that craziness. But it's also why you constantly have to be protecting your mental state. Because if you don't, that's when your business starts to feel like a mental and emotional drain, and you'll start to resent what you're doing. So I'd say for me, that's been the biggest challenge, because coming into it, I was completely unprepared. I just assumed I'd write a book, put up an offer, launch a website, and everything would like just start taking off. And as anyone listening to this knows, that couldn't be further from the truth. So I came in with very much with that young naivety, which I've had to grow a lot in myself along the way.
But maybe it was a good point to start with that mindset, because it helped you get started. If you had known the truth, would you have started?
Probably. I'd actually, even knowing the truth, I don't know if I would have done anything different, because I think this is one of those trial by fire situations where you've got to go through it to find out who you are and come out the other side. Because I think even people listening to this now, if they're younger entrepreneurs or they're getting started, no amount of me saying, oh, it's going to be a roller coaster and you're going to get punched in the face constantly really means anything until you've been through it. And it's why you've just got to go in it as well as part of that with that self-compassion. Because one of the biggest risks to people's success I see is just the way that they beat themselves up when things go wrong, and they're so hard on themselves. And while being your own biggest critic can be amazing, it can push you to such incredible accomplishments, you have to learn to balance that with what's actually going on, because you're always going to be able to do a little bit better. There's always going to be room for improvement. And if you keep dragging yourself down on top of the rest of the challenges, it's just going to be a constant uphill battle. So you have to learn to just know when you've done your best, and then shift that focus from what goes wrong to what you need to do to move forward.
Yeah, that's so true. You have to learn to love the roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship. You have to learn to calm yourself down when you need it. So you have to learn how to regulate your nervous system, and you need to learn how to focus, how to not get distracted, and yeah, to stay true to yourself, which is also a big challenge for a lot of people. Because what I see happening a lot is people just creating this facade where they portray or where they pretend to be someone they're not. And then they suffer a lot, because every day they show up as this person that they are not it's not the person, it's not the authentic self, it's not the person they really are. And this causes a lot of cognitive dissonance, and it makes them feel terrible, and it makes them dread showing up every day. So this is also something that I see happening a lot. Is that something that you've seen a lot as well?
Yeah, and it's a really interesting one. I think a lot of it is compounded by social media, because everyone feels like they have to keep up this image. They've got it all together. Like
Yeah.
I've lost count of how many times I've had application calls with people who've come to work with me, and you look at their LinkedIn and they look like everything's amazing. They're all smiles, they're winning awards, like things are going fantastic. And then they get on the call and they're breaking down. Like I had a guy come to me a few months ago and he was like, I don't know if I can keep going. It's like it's taken everything out of me to get to this level, and now we're going to double in size again. I just don't know if I've got any fight left. But if you looked at him from the outside world, he'd look like he'd have it all together. And I see this constantly with the clients I work with, where because people put them up on a pedestal and look at them like they've got everything like intact, they internalize it and they bottle up all that stress, because they don't want the external world to see that their external state doesn't match their internal state doesn't match their external success. And it's just really understanding that every single person in your business is going through the highs and the lows. And that's why I believe we need to have a bigger conversation about it, because mental health challenges are such a big risk for so many entrepreneurs. And I'm talking across the board here. Like at this point, I've had the fortune of working with everything from first-time founders to people running SaaS companies, global production firms, billion-dollar unicorns in Silicon Valley. Like I've seen such a spectrum across 15 different countries. And people like to think that they're the only one facing these challenges. Yet I've seen it time and time again through the conversations we've had behind closed doors, that that voice, the stress, the pressure, all of it is such a universal thing. But we're ashamed to talk about it because we think it makes us weak, whereas actually knowing where things are weighing you down and getting the help and support you need is actually a strength.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, as a fellow mindset and performance coach, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can develop a growth mindset to help us achieve high performance. Can you share some practical tips with us today?
So, as a starting point, what I found is the biggest reason why most people don't achieve their goals is they focus too much on what they want and they don't figure out who they need to become in order to make it happen. And
Mhm.
the problem with that is every new level of success requires a new level of you, which is why your current habits, behaviors, what got you to where you are today isn't going to get you to the next level. And if anything, it's the very thing holding you back. And this is why the first thing I do with all new clients and anyone listening to this right now can do exactly the same thing is you need to figure out, okay, bearing in mind your vision and where you're trying to get to, what does the version of you who made that happen look like? Close your eyes, get a mental image of the version of you who's actually turned that into a reality, and then reverse engineer it. Really start to think about, okay, that person who's accomplished that goal, what did they do every single day? What habits did they develop? What routines did they create? What non negotiables did they follow through with? What really helped them actually get to that point? Because when you have that, then you can figure out, okay, this is what I need to start doing in order to get to where I want to be. But then from a mindset standpoint, you have to disconnect yourself from your current way of operating because your current thought process and way of doing things want to keep you where you are. So you need to start pushing yourself to show up and act as that version of you in everything that you do. So that means when it comes down to having that tough conversation, to starting work on that project, whatever it is, if you're having that internal resistance, you have to catch yourself in the act and be like, okay, what would the version of me that I want to become do right now? Would they make excuses? Would they put it off? Would they procrastinate, or would they push themselves to take action, even if it's uncomfortable? When you start actually showing up as the person you want to become in everything you do, that's how you're going to reprogram your subconscious and you're really going to evolve into that next level version of yourself. So that's one thing I love as a starting point. Like, obviously, we could probably spend the next few hours talking about mindset tools, but that's just one of my favorite ways to begin. Because whenever you're in an uncomfortable situation, you can always ask yourself, like, what did the person I want to become do right now? And then push yourself to take that action. And that's how you're going to start actually getting momentum.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. That's a great technique for embodying your goals, which is the thing that helps you become the person you need to become in order to achieve your goals. So I love that. Do you have any other tips on how to build resilience and mental toughness, just to help us navigate the ups and downs of entrepreneurship that we already mentioned?
Yeah, I'd break that down. There's probably three different tips that I would give, like all tackling it on a different variety of ways. The first is you have to get out of a reactive state because when you're running a business, life is constantly happening to you. It's all about putting out fires, solving other people's problems. And when you're constantly firefighting, there's no way you can make the right decisions or show up as the best version of yourself. And that's why you have to understand that there's a very big difference between a reaction and a response. A
Mhm.
reaction is impulsive. It's fueled by emotion, whereas a response is controlled. And this is why, if you want to feel more in control of what's happening, whenever you find yourself reacting, you have to force yourself to stop. You have to slow down, take a deep breath, and then really figure out, okay, why am I feeling this way? What is going on right now? And what do I need to do in order to change how I deal with this? You'd be amazed at how much life will change when you stop just reacting and you start actually processing and understand what's going on. The second thing is setting the right boundaries and developing the right routines. Because a lot of the time, when people are constantly dumping stuff on you and you're always like overwhelmed by everything that needs to get done, that's just going to put so much stress and pressure on you that you're constantly going to be in this high stress state. And this is why I find that a lot of the time with the people I work with, we really need to figure out, okay, what are their zone of genius? What are the key things they need to get done? And then what boundaries do they need to implement in order to make it happen? Because if you keep going into your days and you get derailed by other people's problems, you have to start learning when to say no, when to push back, and when to prioritize yourself. And then the final tip I would give is also taking time to reflect and focus on what's happening. Because one thing I do with all my clients is we track the journey, everything from tough conversations to how their days go, everything else going on. And then we take some time each week to break it down and see what happened. And anyone listening to this could do the same. Take a little bit of time each day to journal, like what threw you off your game, what things triggered you, whatever went on. And then take some time each week to go back to it. Because if you look through, you could look for correlations. You might be able to find that there's one situation that keeps causing a negative emotional response, or there's one member of your team who keeps causing frustration. If you can figure that out, you can then put together a game plan of how to better deal with it in the future. But if you're just stuck in the trenches trying to push forward, it's just going to keep happening and you're not going to solve it, which again, from a resilience standpoint, it's just going to put all that pressure on you. So it's taking time to not be reactive and being proactive about what's going on.
Yeah, that self-awareness part is really key to just become aware of your own patterns so that you can work through them. And a lot of them I find stem from old wounds that might even trace back to your childhood. And sometimes it's really, you have to uncover what those things were that really got to you, that hurt you, and that you might not be consciously aware of until you take the time and you really think back to the things that shaped you. And then sometimes you uncover things that you didn't know that you had forgotten, and that changed everything for you. And sometimes it's really just becoming aware of how what you experienced in your childhood might, I mean, it wasn't the truth. Maybe someone said something to you. Maybe you listened to an opinion. Maybe someone just hurt your feelings in whatever way. And the way you perceived it wasn't necessarily the truth, even though it felt like the truth in the moment. And now when you can look back as an adult and you look back at what actually happened, and not just the emotional memory that is stored in your body, but you really understand that this was a distortion in your memory and it wasn't the truth, that so often liberates people to just break those patterns.
Yeah, it's such an interesting topic to dive into. And it's also just recognizing and accepting that your past doesn't have to define your future. Like, based on what you were saying, I'll give a perfect example. I think a lot of listeners will probably be able to relate to this. I had a client I was working with last year, and when he came to me, they were scaling, he was expanding his team, the business was really taking off, and he just had this huge bout of imposter syndrome. And he just came to me with this belief that he was a terrible leader. He's like, I can't inspire people, like I can't do all these things. And we started tracing it back to where this started. And this was based back to one of his first jobs. The first time he was put into a leadership position, he was in an environment where he completely crashed and burned. Like, it was a toxic culture. Everyone was blaming everyone else. No one was following through. And the project was a complete disaster. And he took on a belief back then that it was because he was a terrible leader. And since that time, he'd scaled multiple businesses. He had all these huge successes. He'd proved time and time again what he could do. But subconsciously, he was still holding on to the past. And it was only when he stopped to look at, okay, what was going on and all the evidence going against that belief, they could let it go. And he could see that actually, do you know what? Just because I failed that one time, that doesn't define me. That was, if anything, it was a positive, because that experience taught him what not to do when building teams, when recruiting people, when building a culture. So it actually set him up for the next step. But a lot of the time we go through these terrible experiences and we just let it weigh us down. And this is why I'm a big advocate of, like, we're always looking at, okay, what do you need to learn from this to move forward? Every mistake, every challenge, every setback is a stepping stone to growth. And this is why you just need to stop focusing on the past and dwelling on what you can't change and be like, okay, what do I need to do to actually progress here?
Yeah, that's so true. Now, with all that you have achieved so far, where do you want to take your business within the next, say, 2 to 5 years? And what strategies will you implement to achieve that goal?
So my new book, Maybe You Should Give Up, is about to come out. And our goal off the back of that is I want to launch the speaking side of my business. So this is something we've had on the cards for a few years now. Unfortunately, got derailed with the pandemic, so it was put aside. So that's me. I love doing. I love whether it's speaking events or workshops and seminars. I really want to get back into that. The next step with the business is we'll probably also launch a group coaching program off the side of that. And my goal is I'll take on a team of coaches who will deliver certain aspects of that, so I can then free up just working with one-to-one people, some of the group aspect, and then writing more books. But my long-term vision when I started this 10 years ago was just be a writer and do speaking. So I'm kind of at the stage now where I've had the experience working with people. I've figured out what I want to do, and now I really want to double down on that while also keeping my one-to-one practice going, just because I love that aspect of what I do. So it's very much taking what I've been doing and just pushing it to the next level.
Sounds great. Best of luck with that. And last but not least, where can all of our listeners find you online if they wanted to work with you or just connect with you or learn more about you?
So the easiest place to connect with me is go to my website, byronmorrison.com. I'm also active on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Just search for author Byron Morrison. And you can also get my new book, Maybe You Should Give Up, anywhere that you can order books.
Yeah, so we will definitely make sure to put a link in the show notes once this episode airs. And thank you so much, Byron, again for sharing all those amazing tips and insights with us today. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. Take care and talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. That's a fantastic, easy, and zero-cost way to help the show grow. Just use the link in the show notes and make my day. If you'd like to take it one step further, you can now join my inner circle and become an official supporter of the Wired for Success podcast. Supporting the show is super simple and will only take about 30 seconds. Basically, it works like any other paid subscription. All you have to do is to go to glow.fm/wiredforsuccess podcast, pay $5 per month or as much or as little as you like, and choose the link of the podcast player you want to use. You can listen anywhere in any app. So for less than the price of 1 to 2 fancy coffees per month, you can really make a difference and help me keep this show awesome. For more tips and info, check out my website at wiredforsuccess.solutions. Thanks a ton and talk to you soon.